Hi, this is Graphically Alex coming at you with all things fat related. If that's something that interests you, please subscribe. I'd love to have you. Oh my gosh, Alex, where's that hat? Where's that Slytherin hat? What have you been doing? Gosh, I've never seen it before. I know that's what you're thinking. I know. No, but I just want to go ahead and film this so I can have a day off on Wednesday. I know. It's so evil. It is so like indulgent. But I'm going to do that. So that's why we're here. Now, I do want to say this is the last one I'm going to do because the rest are kind of boring, to be honest, which it's not like they're like horrible, but it's like there's no point. There's nothing really to be added. Like, I think one, she was like, I feel small when I have a crush on a guy or something, like things like that, which it's like, okay, like there isn't much to say about that, in my opinion. It's like, okay, I don't know. But this one, she's kind of talking about something where there's a little bit of meat to it, so I can go ahead and respond. But this is the last one. So if you hate her, this is it. It's done. Promise. It's over. Anyways, okay, let's go ahead.
Fats, a series where I, a fat, talk about things that only plus-size girlies will understand. I had a war flashback to elementary middle school yesterday, and we need to talk about it. And it was all triggered because someone on my previous video talked about how when they were in theater, they had to be in charge of the curtains because the school didn't have any costumes that would fit them and didn't go out of their way to make sure that there was any. It reminded me of when I was in middle school, when I wanted to play volleyball, and my school didn't have any uniforms in my size, so they made my mom make one. While everyone else on the team ended up having like the matching set, looking really cute, I had to come to games wearing a blue t-shirt with felted letters on it with my school's name and black yoga pants. I have many thoughts on this. First things first. All kids ever want to do is belong.
Okay, so I will say, so far I agree with her here. I know. Whoa. But I do agree that that is kind of alienating for a kid to try to be on the team. They already probably feel out of place because they're fat and there's nothing for them to wear. That can be triggering. And you can see like she still thinks about it God knows how long after. So it's something that she fixates upon and she thinks about and she ruminates about as she has a war flashback over it. Now, what I will say is, I think you should question it if you're having a war flashback. It shouldn't be that dramatic. I remember, always deprioritize that, the body stuff, because you're probably putting it on too much of a pedestal or you're focusing on it too much. It should not be a war flashback. If it's creating that amount of distress, that amount of anxiety, I would at least question it. Why? Am I hyperfixated? It's a question. Okay? So, let's continue.
It is age appropriate for them to want to socialize, want to be part of a group,
True.
a team. With that includes the habits of going to practice together, meals together.
I totally agree with her here.
Uniforms. So you're going to sit here and tell me that a child who's already being ostracized and bullied for their body size now also has to endure the extra layer of visibly looking different in another way, both within their own team.
I think the part that stings is it's the aspect of I have to dress differently because of my body. That's the sting. And that's why I think she's so hurt over it, because it's that same thing that I felt getting on the plane last year. I'm so anxious and I'm so nervous that I'm not going to be able to fit on the plane because of the size of my body. Which again, I still was recovered, but there's still triggers. And there was a lot for me last year. I swear I was triggered in every way possible, but I never acted on it. So that isn't technically E followed by the letter D because I didn't act on it. I was just triggered. I had the same sort of mental framework or mental map still. And I've been doing a lot of work on that to like get rid of it basically, which I think it's been actually really successful. Just saying. But it is a lot of work, especially if you have E followed by the letter D or the past. I call it the legacy of it. Within the weight loss, I've had to do a lot of mental work during this time. And like I said, it's worthy work. It gets done. Neuroplasticity, thank God. Thank God the brain can evolve and change. Thank God. You know? But it can. So I'm here to tell you, you can change it. You can get over it. I'm going to be flying twice. I have no qualms about it. I don't think about it all the time other than in this channel. I promise, okay? It's not a Charlie XCX. I think about it all the time. That's not what I think about all the time. But it comes up in the channel. So I'm not tortured about it in the way that she's tortured about this. But I will just say, like, you can get over it. That's all I'm trying to say. You can get past it. You can heal. The scars heal. Thank God. I didn't know, but they are. They're healing. So, but it does take mental work. Okay.
And when they go to new places where they don't know the kids, the parents, who's out there as a threat to them. And that's not even touching the fact that schools will highly encourage.
So remember, I don't think that it would be that necessarily that the people are a threat. I do understand that she was bullied for her size, so there's going to be some vigilance there about the issue. And I think she also, in my opinion, she likely, I can't diagnose her or whatever, but she likely has some kind of toxic ritualistic thing going on. So even if there wasn't bullying, she still would probably be feeling that way. And that's it's all true. I just don't know if every kid would feel that same way in that specific way. They might just be like, oh my gosh, I don't have a matching outfit with everybody, and they're sad about it. Or like, mine looks ugly. That kind of thing. I don't know that everybody would be like hypervigilant and like looking and feeling threatened by everybody. She needs to kind of separate, which I don't know if she's aware of her disorder, but you kind of have to separate the disorder from the actual issue. So when she's talking, like to me, when she's talking about the fact that they couldn't get her a uniform, that's valid. That is a sort of systemic problem, if we want to call it that. That's something external. That's an issue that I don't think is fair, that I think should be resolved, period. Which hopefully these things are being, resolved at this point. But when it comes to a lot of this internal monologue that she's having as a child, that may not be something universal, So you have to kind of separate it a bit, because I've noticed with a lot of these fat activists, there's a very they automatically assume that everybody feels the same exact way. And oftentimes I've talked about, this was in 2023. So it seems like in that year, they really started to focus more on gender or on being a woman, on womanhood. So they'll often try to use womanhood as all women, we're all the same. We all feel the same about everything. So I feel this way. I felt this way as a kid. Well, you as a woman, you also would feel the same way. That's not necessarily true. You have to remember, not every woman has an E followed by the letter D. Not every woman has trauma around this issue. Not every woman has been bullied for their size. You have to acknowledge all those things. But they can't. They're not able to, because they project it onto every single person. I try my best to really differentiate what is the disorder and what isn't. And I can tell her, I'm not a woman, but I would feel the same way that she felt at that time. I had the same obsessive thoughts about it that she had. So we can prove it here. It's not womanhood. It's the disorder. And I wasn't bullied for my size. Typically, I wasn't. I had a couple moments, which again, I remember because the brain tries to remember those moments, but it didn't happen very often to me. It really didn't. So I'm just saying, I think it has more to do with the disorder than anything, because I have the legacy of that disorder. She's likely still in it. That's what we have in common. So we have to remember they're always trying to create a sense of community around like being a fat girly, for example. It's not a fat girly experience. It's an E followed by the letter D experience. That's what it is. That's what it is. Okay? And that's not something you want to identify with. That's not something you want to build community together on. You don't want to be reinforcing that in each other. That's a very toxic thing. And it's pathological. But just remember, E followed by the letter D is not womanhood. I don't want to hear that on this channel. And sometimes you guys say it in my comments, or you try to act like it's being a woman is having an E followed by the letter D. It's not. That isn't true. There are many women who don't have one, who never have. So you need to stop. Stop it. Because it puts pressure on women that don't have it. It's projected upon them in a very negative way, and it can create some barriers there or some negative incentives for women who don't have this issue, because it's so commonly associated with being a woman that a woman is assumed to have an issue with it. So even like just casual weight loss advice that is not even a big deal, people may be like, oh, I can't say that to her because she probably has this problem or it'll make her spiral. No, not every woman is going to spiral. That's not true. So I think it's really important to separate the two things because they're not the same. And I have to say, being a woman is not an excuse for having an E followed by the letter D. We don't accept that. That's unacceptable. That is absolutely unacceptable. That is disgusting logic. That is actually sexist. If you're concerned about that, that is horrible to have that mindset. So I'm just saying, no, I don't tolerate it here. I don't. I certainly don't. Anyways, let's continue.
Plus size students participate in team sports, aka shame them and their parents until they do it, and then not even provide the equipment that they need. Are you fucking kidding me? And then this
I agree. I agree with that. I do. So I agree with her there.
All the way up through adulthood too. In terms of movement, sports,
Okay, now this is where I'm like, okay, let's see.
Exercise, it is part of the many ways in which plus size kids, adolescents, and then into adults are trained to believe that movement isn't for them. That it's only for them when they become.
I don't know that people are trained to believe it. I think, again, I hate to say it. She's going to hate it. She would hate this if she was seeing this. I think it's a part of the E followed by the letter D. Remember that when you have that mindset, exercise is often involved, whether it's extreme exercising or these types of things, or it's an absolute avoidance of it. Okay? There's usually something involved with it, and it usually serves the purpose of the disorder. So it usually has, your relationship to exercise is subservient to the toxically ritualistic, regardless of where you're at on that spectrum. So you have to understand that that's likely where it was coming from. It's not something that you were trained. Like I said, there is a light taboo or a light like, oh my gosh. But remember, that could be a toxic ritualistic mindset that's been perpetrated or perpetuated to the general population, or that people have that are tripping about seeing a fat person exercise. They themselves may have an issue. It's often an internal issue that they project onto you. Because I can assure you, most people who are in shape or people who don't have toxic ritualistic or don't think of anything this way, they don't trip out that much when they see a fat person exercising. And I can see like how I've gotten out of it, and the view that I have towards fat people exercising is vastly different than how it was 10 years ago, even in myself. So I think I can commend or understand the idea that a lot of these fat activists, they understand that there is something wrong internally. However, to say that it's toxic diet culture or all these different things, or to blame the media or blame everything outside of yourself, and it's all these things made me believe this. It's like, no, there's some kind of traumatic aspect that you are now coping using an E followed by the letter D to deal with the anxiety of it. And that process starts to be transferred to many, many other types of anxiety. That's what it is. So it's not the media. It isn't. I'm sorry. It's coming from inside. If you stopped watching TV, you stopped reading books, would you stop having the disorder? No. Because it's inside. And so it's like, I understand they're thinking like toxic fat phobia, internalized fat phobia. Oh my gosh, it isn't internalized fat phobia. It's a disorder. That's what the problem is. So you have to fight it. And you gotta fight it. You do. It's sticky. That's the problem with it. It's not something you can passively get over. You have to say, no, I'm not going to engage with this anymore. You have to flatly refuse and say, no, that's stupid. No, that doesn't make any sense. No, that's not logical. And you have to kind of do that. And that's how you get out. And then the longer you don't do it, the easier it is. But you can't give it any credence. And that's what I fear this movement is doing, is it gives you credence for this. So that's, in my opinion, why you feel like you can't exercise as a fat person, or why you struggled with it for so long. And maybe you are finally breaking one of the rules of your toxic ritualistic mindsets, but you have a long way to go, in my opinion.
Become skinny. What do you want us to do? We want to participate in movement. You systemically exclude us.
What I want you to do is I want you to understand that it doesn't matter that much what other people think, especially as an adult. When it comes to exercise, you're a grown person. You're a grown woman. If you want to exercise, you can exercise without the approval of anybody. By the way, most people would approve. But if somebody doesn't, it's not a big deal. You're an adult. You can make a decision. Going to exercise is a decision. You don't owe anybody to not exercise. And if you're just using that as an excuse, that's something that you have to really look inside and be honest with yourself about. But that's what I would say. I'd say, I don't expect you to make your movement dependent on the approval of other people, with the exception of if it's dangerous. You need to be safe. I will always say to be safe. Do not injure yourself to the best of your ability. Other than that, though, if it's not rooted in physical reality, physical limits, who gives a fuck what people think? Go to the gym. Go exercise. Go do what you need to do. Because odds are, it's not as much about what other people are saying. It's about what you're telling yourself. Because that's what's constantly being reinforced over and over and over again. And I understand that it's hard to realize that that's what you're doing, but that's what you're doing. You're constantly reinforcing, exercise isn't for me, exercise isn't for me, exercise isn't for me, exercise isn't for me. I just choked. That's how the thought process is behind this disorder. It's very repetitive. It's very, very repetitive. It's how it is in the brain, and you don't always realize it. But the issue, hold on, let me cough 1 second. The issue is not to change what is being repeated in the brain. It's to get rid of the need to repeat something in your brain that often around this issue. That's what it is. Because it's the actual repetitive obsession that is the problem with this disorder, and what you're repetitively obsessing about, that is what's dangerous. That's what affects your behaviors around food. So throw it out entirely. And it took me a while. I've told you guys I had to transfer it. And I did this subconsciously. I didn't realize I was doing this. But instead of making it about my body, I made it about my car. And I would have anxiety about my car. And then now, sometimes I still get anxiety and I want to tether my anxiety to something, but it's like my brain is just looking for anything to freak out about. It's like, because it's getting weaker now. I think as the sort of, the legacy of it is going away, that the hypothyroidism is improving, like I'm getting thinner, like all these things. But I think a lot of it has been mental work this year. These kind of mental pathways, they're weakening. So it's like it's trying to find ways to get triggered still. But it's so laughable to me now. Like I was literally getting anxious about, like, I wear a retainer at night. I was getting anxious about my retainer. I was looking at it. I got a ultrasonic cleaner for Christmas. I don't know why I have it right here. But I was looking at it and I was like, oh my gosh, is this damaging my retainer? Is it damaging my retainer? Is it? I don't know. And then I'm like thinking about it. Like, is it damaging my retainer? Like, it's like, and then I'm realizing, I'm like, oh my gosh, Alex, like your brain, or like that past is trying, it's like reaching for anything to still do that tethering, that latching onto. And it's like, honey, it's not necessary anymore. And I tell myself, I'm like, it's stupid. This is dumb. I don't need this anymore. But understand there can be a process where it has to transfer, and you need to make sure that it's not transferring to something harmful. Like my mom, for example, I love to use my mom as an example. I love it. But she is trying to fight her E followed by the letter D. And she got this like really, really random obsession with the After series on like Netflix and the books and all this stuff. And she just like really dove deep into it. And there was like a while where she was constantly watching a movie, listening to a book, like anything. And we kind of would laugh about it. She's like, I'm just so obsessed. And I told her, I'm like, just be obsessed. It's fine. It's not a harmful obsession. Like, it's okay. That's fine. So it's like, sometimes things like that can be a stepping stone, but you got to get it off of your body. You got to, because it's dangerous. I told you, that is dangerous. Obsessing over a TV series is not dangerous. You'll be okay. I promise. Like that kind of stuff, it's like find something that's harmless and then it doesn't matter. And then you can work through and, obviously deal with all, if you have any other mental health issues, comorbidities, any of that, deal with that. If you have any trauma that's rooted with stuff, you have to process all that stuff. But in the meantime, it can be useful to have a harmless obsession because it's not going to hurt you, And eventually she'll probably move on to something else, or she started to move on from the After movies and stuff, but it's just funny. But it's like, it's okay. It really is, So, anyways, always be holistic. So if you have comorbidities, try to work with them. If you have trauma that doesn't have to do with your body or anything, try to get through that because it's probably putting pressure on you psychologically. And all I can really help with or try to give perspective to or try to offer my experience with is the toxic ritualistic. I can't help you with anything else. I don't know, somebody was saying, well, I'm bipolar, which it's like no shade or anything, but I have no idea how to deal with that, It's like, and I'm not going to act like I do. But it's like, you deal with it, right? Like you deal with all the stuff, but you have to get it off the eating behavior. You have to. So don't obsess over the body. And I feel like when you stop doing that, you start to see the actual problems because And it can be a tough process, but you got to, you know? And obviously, I'm talking about it from a more severe perspective, but it's still true in lighter shades of the disorder. It's still there. The same logic is still there. It's just not as bad or not as often. And I would still say, don't do it, because there's probably another issue that you're avoiding. And that's not a good way to live. Trust me on that. I could, I would say I could write the book on it, but I'll say instead I made the channel on it. Okay? And it's been a very harsh process to try to catch up on everything from a lifetime of avoiding everything using the toxic ritualistic. Anyways, let's go ahead and finish. She's almost done.
Don't participate in movement. You shame us and tell us we're gonna die an early death. How do you expect them to go through life, never knowing which direction to go? And no matter what direction it is, you're gonna be hated for it. Welcome to FaceTime.
Okay. Well, I feel like I answered your question. So, anyways, you guys, thank you so much for watching. I will be back tomorrow because it's still January. Evil smile. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to figure it out later. So, thank you guys so much. I will talk to you later. I'll talk to you tomorrow. Have a good rest of your day, night, etc. See you soon. Bye.